Hello, this is Gihan Pereira. My question for you today is, what's your mindset around AI tools like ChatGPT? I'm here at the Perth Convention Centre today. I'm speaking at a conference very soon for an organization, actually a group of organizations who are bringing their leaders together, and they've got a special session for their young professionals. So these are the people that might be their future leaders, and they've asked me to present to the young professionals. And I love that. I love that there are organizations and leaders who value the young people in their teams, because they're obviously going to be future leaders and they have different perspectives about the future. Interestingly, a couple of days ago, I was speaking for another group of leaders in a different organization. And again, these are senior leaders, and we were talking about AI and the impact of AI. And one of the participants said to me that she's a senior leader, and she was hiring somebody for a new role, and she wrote her job advertisement. And in the responses, there were a few people, who had obviously used ChatGPT to help craft their response. They hadn't done enough to hide the fact that it had been used as part of their process. And her initial idea about that, well, she was open enough to ask, "Now, what do you think about that?" And I asked the room, and there were some people who said, "Well, it's just a sign of laziness. I would never hire somebody like that who didn't even bother to put in enough effort to respond to the ad, let alone the interview and what they're going to be like in the workplace." And I completely understand that. I completely understand that attitude. But let me give you three different perspectives. So first, as a hiring manager, what if you had used ChatGPT to write the ad? Because it's pretty good at doing that. You could give it a list of selection criteria, the sort of things you're looking for in the role, and ask it to draft you the first version of the ad, and then you'd edit it. Now, would that be okay, or would that be considered cheating? What if the candidate found out that you'd used ChatGPT to craft the ad? For most leaders and managers, you'd say, no, we use all the resources that are available to us. That's the first question. What if the tables were turned? If you use ChatGPT, is that okay? Then looking at using resources, what if a candidate had actually got through that process and come to an interview, and they said, "Oh, I Googled your company to find out a little bit more about what you do." You go, "Well, yeah, that's of course, we expect you to do that now." What if they said, "We also looked on LinkedIn to have a look at other employees there to see what they're posting about, what sort of projects you're involved in at the moment." As a manager, you might say, "Well, actually, that's quite good. A bit more than what most people do. We like that." And what if they said, "I talked to my career coach about this interview and how I could demonstrate the value that I could add, and also ask you about ways that this would help my career as well." As a manager, you might say, "That's actually quite interesting. Very few people do that." And then what if they said, "Oh, by the way, I used ChatGPT to help draft my response to your ad to get this interview." I wonder how you'd feel about that. Would you say that's great initiative, or would you say, "Oh, you just cheated. I don't want you anymore"? So again, it's a question to ask. And the third question that I think is worth asking is, when you see something like this, like in this case, a candidate has obviously used AI in their application, do you reject it because you think they're cheating? Or do you say, here's somebody who's obviously interested in technology, who's used the initiative, who's enthusiastic, excited about AI, a bit rough around the edges, but we need these AI champions in our team. Maybe that's a positive. It may not be the only reason you hire them, but it certainly shouldn't be a reason that you reject them. So again, that's another perspective. So consider those perspectives whenever you see AI tools being used, even if you see them being used imperfectly, because more and more we're going to have AI in our lives, and we're still very early on the AI journey. So you'll see plenty of examples of tools like ChatGPT being used and not being used well. And in some cases, it's being used badly, but in some cases, it's just not perfect. Don't expect perfection now. Look at it as an opportunity to see it in use in the real world, and how can we do it better. So I'd just like you to think about that, and especially when you see people using AI, even if they're not using it perfectly, in your team, then they're perhaps the people who should be your AI champions in the future. And if you're interested in more about that, you can download my worksheet about how to find, nurture, and support AI champions, because they're going to be essential for us as they lead us into this AI-enabled future. I'm sure you'll find it useful. I'll see you in the future.